Heavy rain poured over Manhattan, as if the city itself was trying to wash away every trace of warmth. Neon lights reflected across the wet streets while yellow taxis rushed by, splashing dirty water onto the sidewalks. Under the awning of an expensive steakhouse on Broadway stood an old homeless man. His name was Arthur. Wrapped in a worn-out coat, he held a small wooden box tightly against his chest like it was the last thing he had left in the world. People walked around him as though he didn't exist. Then, a black limousine pulled up in front of the restaurant. A young woman named Tiffany stepped out, dressed in luxury from head to toe, diamonds sparkling around her neck. Beside her were her wealthy friends and boyfriend, laughing loudly. The moment she saw Arthur, her smile disappeared. "Oh my God! Why would they let someone like him stand here?" Arthur quietly stepped aside to make room, but Tiffany still looked disgusted. She shoved him lightly with her designer handbag. "He's ruining the whole atmosphere." One of the security guards immediately walked over. "Move along, old man." Before Arthur could react, the guard pushed him hard toward the curb. He fell into a freezing puddle. The wooden box slipped from his hands and nearly slid into the storm drain. Arthur panicked and grabbed it just in time, clutching it tightly to his chest. Not a single person from the restaurant looked back. They simply laughed and disappeared inside the warm golden lights of luxury. Arthur stayed there silently in the rain, holding the box like it carried the only memories he had left. Arthur slowly walked through the stormy streets. He passed bright stores and crowded cafes, but no one opened a door for him. Until he stopped in front of a tiny bakery on a quiet corner. Rose's Bakery. Unlike the cold city outside, the bakery glowed with soft yellow lights and the warm smell of butter and fresh bread. Inside, a young woman was cleaning the counter before closing. Her name was Sarah. When she noticed Arthur standing outside the foggy window, she didn't chase him away. Instead, she saw his trembling hands, purple from the cold. After a few silent seconds, she opened the door. "Please come in. It's freezing out there." Arthur hesitated, maybe because it had been a very long time since someone had spoken to him with kindness. Sarah pulled out a chair near the small heater. She handed him a dry towel. Then she placed a warm croissant and a wad of black coffee in front of him. "The bakery's about to close, but I think you need this more than I do." Arthur stared at the pastry for several seconds. He didn't eat immediately, as if he had forgotten what it felt like to be cared for. Sarah smiled softly. "I used to sleep in subway stations for almost a year." Arthur slowly looked up. As she wiped the counter, Sarah continued, "If a few kind people hadn't helped me back then, this bakery would never exist." Silence filled the room. Outside, rain tapped gently against the windows. Arthur finally took a small bite of the croissant. His tired eyes became watery. "You still believe in kindness?" he asked quietly. Sarah smiled. "If I didn't, I wouldn't have opened the door for you." For the first time that night, Arthur smiled, a sad, fragile smile. The rain slowly began to fade. The clock on the wall showed nearly midnight. Arthur slowly stood up. He adjusted his old coat and picked up the wooden box. Sarah stepped closer. "Do you want me to call shelter for you?" Arthur gently shook his head. Then he looked at her for a long moment, as if trying to remember her face forever. His voice was weak and rough. "Thank you for seeing me." Sarah froze for a second. Arthur carefully placed the wooden box on the table. "Please, watch this for me, just for a moment." Then he turned and walked out into the night. Sarah tried to stop him, but when she reached the door, Arthur had already disappeared into the foggy streets of New York. Only distant sirens and the sound of rain remained. Sarah waited nearly 10 minutes. He never came back. She looked down at the old wooden box sitting quietly on the table. After hesitating for a moment, she slowly opened it. Inside the box were not old clothes or worthless belongings. Instead, there were government bonds, bank documents, and legal papers carefully wrapped in waterproof covers. Sarah froze in shock. Her hands trembled as she picked up the letter resting on top. The handwriting was old but elegant. She slowly began to read. To the person who gave me warmth one final time. If you are reading this letter, I have probably already left this world. I once had everything. Money, power, homes, and success. But after my wife passed away, I discovered that the worst kind of poverty is not losing wealth. It is living in a world where no one sees you as human anymore. For years, I wandered through this city searching for one truly kind soul. Not someone impressed by money, but someone willing to open a door for a man who appeared to have nothing left. Tonight, you were that person. Please use what I leave behind to build the life you deserve, and please, don't let kindness disappear from this city. Arthur Bennett. Sarah burst into tears. At that exact moment, the small television inside the bakery interrupted the silence with breaking news. Tonight, billionaire businessman Arthur Bennett was officially pronounced dead at St. Vincent Hospital at 11:40 p.m. A younger photo of Arthur appeared on the screen. Elegant suit, confident smile. Sarah stood frozen. He was never just a homeless old man. He was one of the richest and most powerful men in the city. Outside the bakery window, Tiffany and her wealthy friends walked by after dinner. She casually glanced inside. But this time Sarah stood tall behind the counter, calm, confident, proud, no longer the insecure girl who once struggled to survive. And Tiffany still walked beneath the bright neon lights of luxury. It somehow looked emptier than ever. The small bakery continued glowing warmly in the cold New York night. Behind the fogged-up window, Sarah quietly held the letter against her chest, her eyes still filled with tears. Outside, crowds of strangers rushed through the city beneath the flashing neon lights. But for the first time in many years in that cold and heartless city, a small act of kindness had finally been rewarded.